Hey dudes, it's Llarold. Patch 11.2 is fast approaching, and now is the time to decide what class, or classes, you're going to play in Season 3 of The War Within. I'm going to break down the latest rounds of class changes for tanks, and give the reasons why you would want to play each of them in the coming patch. So that's the intro. Join our Discord in the description and say hello to me and Sunset. Alright, so before we get into it, let's just point out some of the obvious stuff here, right? It's still the PTR, things can change. They can change once they're live, too. But this is World of Warcraft and we are talking about tanks, so changes are unlikely. They simply don't have the resource power to give changes to tanks. They have 500 more Hunter and Mage changes left to do. So I feel pretty confident saying that the majority of the changes happening for tanks have already happened. And the only really groundbreaking set of changes is that Monk is getting a bit of a talent rework where, not even really a rework, just kind of an addition where they have the option of having Celestial Infusion alongside Celestial Brew. It kind of works like Ignore Pain combined with Celestial Brew. It's a little easier to use in Mythic Plus. And then Invoke Nizao is getting a pretty significant rework and buff where he'll be sort of a usable cooldown, although he is a really greedy, talent point hungry boy, and I'm not really thrilled about the idea of spending 4 talent points on a 2.5 minute cooldown that is essentially just Thunderstorm. Prot Warrior is also getting a set of buffs, or really more of a rework to their entire class tree. Prot Warrior is also getting a rework to their entire spec tree. It's actually, I think, a lot more exciting than the stuff happening to Monk. The Warrior stuff is really cool, right? But we talked about it over a month ago, and nothing of real significance has changed for them since then. So, tank rankings don't really mean anything without the context of the dungeons and raids that you're going to be playing them in, so here's like a little brief overview of the dungeons and the raid. The 8 dungeons in the coming season are going to be Dawnbreaker, Arrakara, City of Echoes, both from Season 1, and talked with Sunset about this, kind of gauged both of our thoughts on this. I think we both agree, Dawnbreaker and Arrakara, neither of those are the greatest dungeon in the world, but at least they're quick. Dawnbreaker really stands out as being just a particularly buggy dungeon, and if they fix some of the technical issues, maybe it'll actually be pretty good, but I wouldn't count on it. Operation Floodgate was a dungeon that was added fresh in Season 2. There's a lot of interesting ideas on display in this dungeon, but it's also a dungeon in which one person who doesn't know what they're doing or is just simply bad or whatever can really cause a lot of problems for everybody else. That's true to some extent in every single dungeon, but it's really on display here in Floodgate. Priory of the Sacred Flame, the biggest issue with this place is just simply that it was very overtuned. It just did like 3 key levels more damage than any other dungeon throughout Season 2, and supposedly it's getting some nerfs, but, you know, probably still gonna feel pretty overtuned. Echo Dome Aldani is new. You'll never really know with a new dungeon. It could be good, could be bad. Usually they're overtuned. Then there's Halls of Atonement, Tazoesh Streets of Wonder, and Celia's Gambit all coming back from Shadowlands. Halls of Atonement is Sunset's favorite dungeon from the coming season. I think it's probably my number 2. Streets of Wonder is definitely my favorite from the coming season, and Celia's Gambit is also going to be in the rotation, and that's the nicest thing I could say about it. So with all of these 8 dungeons, it is looking to be yet another interrupt-heavy season of Mythic Plus, but not quite as bad as it was in Season 2. In terms of the raid, our previous video was a preview of the raid from a tank perspective, so I won't restate the whole thing, but looking at all of the fights again, Anti-Magic Shell and Spell Warding are going to be very powerful mechanics in the raid, and other than that, being able to glide forward and cancel knockbacks also looks like it's going to be pretty huge. Hint, hint on which tanks are going to be able to take advantage of those particular powers. Now, one thing that's changing in the coming season is that tier set bonuses are going to be broken up into bonuses for each hero spec, which means effectively you get 2 sets for each class. Blood DK gets a Deathbringer and a Sand Lane set, Demon Hunter gets an Eldrazi Reaver and Fellsguard set, and so on. That means that there's a lot to cover, 12 different tier sets, so rather than go through every single one of them, let's just hit on the highlights. In my opinion, the most fun of the tank tier sets thematically is the Elun's Chosen for Bear Druid. It's just one that I really like and think is cool. It gives you a bunch of extra thrash damage, and this number hasn't been updated. This has gotten a bit of a buff since it was initially posted, but Thrash has a 40% chance to launch a Star Surge at your target for, I think it's 120-130% effectiveness. So a very hard-hitting Star Surge as a free proc on 40% of your Thrashes. And then the 4-piece bonus makes it so that those Star Surges also splash for extra damage and give you a stacking buff. Whenever you cast Lunar Beam, you'll get like a ramping damage buff. feels awesome. Like, this is a really fun concept on what I think is a, like, kind of underrated and fun hero spec to play anyway. And then on the other side of the spectrum, Master of Harmony for Brewmaster Monk is probably the most boring tier set bonus that, like, I can remember since, I don't know, vanilla World of Warcraft. Occasionally, you'll get an extra damage proc on your Tiger Palm. It splits some damage across 5 targets, so it's not AoE damage, it's specifically split damage, and then it also does some healing. And when you use Celestial Brew, so like every 30 seconds or so, you get 2 guaranteed procs. It's very, 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 very boring. It can still be good. You know, they could tune it up to the point where it's so strong that you want to run nothing but Brewmaster Monks in every group. That's not going to make it interesting, but it will make it strong. And it is actually how it's looking in the coming season. Like, it might actually be kind of strong, which is a bit of a bummer considering how incredibly uninteresting this bonus is. Because all of the tank tier set bonuses basically just add damage, you know, you can look at the rest of them, right? Shadowpan does extra damage, Prot Paladin, Lightsmith does damage, Templar does damage, they all just add damage. I don't think any of them are going to be especially overpowered, but I do think that the Demon Hunter one stands out to me as the one that I am most excited about, and that would be Eldrazi Reaver. Getting 30% on all of your fizz damage out of a 2-piece is pretty cool. And then the comboing nature of Fury of the Eldrazi, like Soul Cleave and Reaver's Mark. I think these are both just like really fun mechanics to combo back and forth. And yeah, you know, it's pretty cool to be like bouncing back and forth between those and kind of balancing out 3 stacks of Reaver's Mark and then 12 hits from your Soul Cleaves. Kind of cool. All right, now I'll quickly hit on tank changes over the last couple of weeks. I actually wrote this section as tank changes, comma, LOL in my notes here because, well, you'll see, right? So there are some very small changes to the tier set bonus for Blood DK, nothing special there. There is the buff to Guardians 2-piece, which is 160%, quite a buff. And then there is a nerf to Monk. They had initially made it so that the physical damage debuff for Monks was scaling up to 8%. They have reverted that, so no buff for you, Monk. And that's pretty much it for that week of tank changes. And then the next week, this past couple of days, involved a 8% damage buff for Blood DK. Demon Hunter got an 8% damage buff and a 17% reduction to Mastery, already their weakest stat, kind of weird. And 12% more damage for Bear Druid, which is probably enough to bring them up to like 5th place, but probably not even gonna like put them into a super competitive space. So DH and Blood DK already did pretty decent damage, but a lot of that in the current season is probably tied to their tier set. So this keeps things somewhat even, but like Monk, who's definitely languishing toward the back end of damage, is not getting anything. Paladin's not getting any changes, and Warrior also no new changes. All right, so let's get into ranking tanks, but I want to start with one note here. I'm specifically talking about tanks as it pertains to them early on in the season, so they aren't necessarily going to have these new 4-set bonuses right away, or potentially even the 2-set bonuses. I'm thinking about the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season here, so just so we're crystal clear, I'm not talking about late season high-level pushing power. I'm specifically talking about tanks early in the season and early raid prog. And so all the tanks can work fine. I'm specifically ranking them with an eye toward having an easy time in dungeons and raids when you're kind of undergeared, and having an easy time getting into groups. We'll probably do an updated version of this once we are a month or so into the season, just to compare our notes and project forward from there as well. So let's start with Death Knight, alphabetical, and start with dungeons as well, because that is what people tend to think of more than raids. So I think Blood DK is a solid B. Like just right middle of the road. They have pretty good damage. I think they're relatively fun, and grips are great to have in groups, but they are susceptible to dying on a pull. They struggle to generate threat and stay alive at the same time, because for Blood DK, the toolkit requires you to do one or the other, and no other tank is like this. All of your AoE skills have nothing to do with staying alive. Blood Boil, Death and Decay, I guess Heart Strike, like these things do not keep you alive in the direct sense. They build up resources to Death Strike, but like they're clearly at odds with each other, so DK is always going to be in a bit of a weird state. For newer players, like that struggle of maintaining survivability and threat is kind of tough. Demon Hunter would be second, and I'm putting him at S tier. I've been playing my Demon Hunter a lot lately, and Sunset's been playing her Demon Hunter a lot lately, actually, as well. We're both really big fans of Demon Hunter all of a sudden. It's incredibly fun. It does tons of damage. It's very tanky. It has great group utility. You know, you got Silence, you got Chains, you got Stun, you got a Fear Sigil. It's also just very tanky. I mean, I said that already, but like that is a valuable utility on its own, the ability to not die. And there's the potential that a secret third spec of Demon Hunter might get added into the game in the coming season, so I really see no downside at all to playing Demon Hunter. It's looking pretty goated going into the next season, looking like a real front runner. Druid I'm going to put at A, but I'm going to put it at like the very bottom of A or top of B. I would say it's above DK in my mind. It is insanely easy to play. That's like a huge advantage. You just kind of run in and start thrashing and spamming Iron Fur, spamming Moonfire. That really helps. The group utility is pretty good. You got a Battle Res, you got, I want to call it Gorfine's Grasp, but that's not quite right. Ursol's Vortex, you've got Typhoon, you've got some knockback utility, got some AoE CCs, you've got Stampeding Roar, which is useful. The damage in Season 2 was terrible, but the new tier set bonus is a lot better, and I think the class getting a baseline damage buff is going to put it at a more competitive space going into the coming season. The next tank would be Brewmaster Monk. I'm going to put them at like a B+ or A-. I would put them right in between Druid and DK. It is tankier than it was, thanks to the talent change. It is not as bad as it usually is in Mythic Plus, which is the faint praise, but for Brewmaster Monk in Mythic Plus, that's actually like pretty great news to not be that bad. It's very easy to establish and hold AoE threat on a Brewmaster Monk, like one of the easiest classes right there with Bear Druid, where you just run in Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, start spinning around, like it's really easy to hold threat. And the group utility is okay. You have Leg Sweep, you have Ring of Peace, you have Clash, which is an underrated bit of group utility to like pull stuff away and root stuff that's, fixated on players in your group. The Monk debuff not getting an increase is pretty funny because it's still terrible. The whole buff debuff system is really bad and Blizzard needs to just kill it already. It's embarrassing how long they have held on to this failed idea from BFA. Ultimately, I would say that the future for Brewmaster Monk is reasonably bright. It's not great. I think the biggest issue with Brewmaster Monk is a lot of the baggage that they carry from the past of being like a real stinko tank. And I think that playing a Brewmaster Monk is going to make it harder for you to find a group. So I would not recommend it. I would actively recommend not playing it. But if you like it, which I do, I think you're going to have a lot better time in the coming season than you have in any of the past, 5 seasons of Brewmaster Monk, which is, that's great news, right? But still, I'm not going to highly recommend it if you're wanting to have an easy time finding groups. I think you're going to have a way easier time playing half of the set of tanks than you are Brewmaster. Paladin I would put right up in S tier with Vengeance Demon Hunter. I might put it a little bit lower, and the reason for that is it's not as tanky. It has interrupts like crazy, which fixes a lot of the issue of group interrupting in Mythic Plus, specifically like disorganized Mythic Plus early in a season where you're not playing with a set group, you're not doing high level pushing. Prop Paladin is just completely capable of carrying a group in a way that no other tank can, even Vengeance Demon Hunter. Sigil of Silence is great, but it is not on the level of Avenger Shield. And that is really just the best group utility in the entire game. Lightsmith having a really strong tier set means that consistent tankiness is up for Prop Paladin, and group utility is also up. The burst damage out of Prop Paladin is also pretty great. It's really easy to play. I'm sorry to offend all the people who think Paladin is hard and you have to be a god gamer to play it. You absolutely do not. It is extremely easy. I think the only real downside to it is that it does take a lot of damage outside of defensive cooldowns. That is going to be alleviated somewhat with Lightsmith being better in the coming season, but it won't be better until you have the 4 set. So that's sort of a weakness. So I would put it a little bit below Vengeance Demon Hunter at the start of the season with potential to trend upwards ahead of Demon Hunter long term. But I would put it at like the S- A+ range, right in there. And then let's finish on Warrior. I think that Warrior is an A+. It's outrageously tanky. I think losing spell block is pretty bad, but the new talent tree will be a lot of fun to experiment with. It's already a fun class, and then you're going to be able to like hit execute and cleave multiple targets with it, get sudden death on a Warrior in Mythic Plus. All of that sounds really, really fun. The damage is great. The only real issue with it is that like group utility is... what even is it? What is Warrior group utility? Battle Shout? Rallying Cry? These things don't... They're barely anything compared to the likes of, most of the other tanks on the list here, right? So that's pretty much the extent of the weaknesses for Warrior. They're very, self-oriented as far as tanks go, but they are pretty great. They're really fun to play and almost impossible to die on. So I would put them as a solid third-place finisher to Demon Hunter and Paladin. All right, so that's Mythic Plus. Now let's move over to Raid, and I'm just going to run through them again. DK, I think, is an S tier tank going into the next raid. It's insanely tanky. It has grips. Gorfine's Grasp is now the only AoE grip in town, unfortunately. A-Bomb Limb is gone, so I think that's a huge advantage for Blood DK for some of these ad fights. And it still has great defensive cooldowns. It still has AMS and anti-magic shell, anti-magic zone, and Death's Advance, so all reasons that you're going to want to play at Blood DK. I think they're going to be one of the most popular tanks in the coming raid. Prop Paladin, kind of the same deal. It has spell warding, it has amazing cooldowns, it has Blessing of Sacrifice, it has spot healing for the group if you want. That's kind of it, but you really don't need anything else. And it has good burst damage, like cooldowns as well, so it shouldn't have any problems holding threat. I think this is going to be the ultimate team for tanks, as Blood DK and Prop Paladin. It's kind of been that way for a while, and I don't think there's any reason to expect that to change. Demon Hunter is in pretty great shape going into the next raid. It's super popular in Mythic Plus, probably the most popular tank if I had to guess right now. And so because of that, it's going to be one of the most popular tanks in raid. It's also pretty good. Like, it has a lot of damage, it is very tanky, the cooldowns are very good, and the ability to glide to deal with the mini knockbacks in the raid is going to be kind of nice. The group utility is okay. Sigil of Shades is just not as good as Gorfine's Grasp, but it'll kind of work in a pinch. So Demon Hunter could definitely be like a discount substitute for DK. It's going to be very, very good as well. So nice, solid, like A rating. You know, third place finish. Very, very comfortable with that. Probably the best all-around tank would be Prop Paladin if you're wanting to do like a mix of both. And then I think Demon Hunter is very competitive, especially if you're a little more oriented toward Mythic Plus at the start of the season. I think Demon Hunter might be looking like the front runner, but both of these two are clearly looking like the two best tanks. Then moving on to Druid, I think the issue with Druid is that it has no unique group utility as Bear. All the other Druid specs can do everything Bear does. It doesn't have great damage output. It doesn't have spectacular defensive value, so it's just really looking like it's probably going to remain the weakest tank in the raid. It was the weakest tank in the raid in the last tier. It's not looking like that's going to change in the coming tier. So congratulations to Pumps. It's still technically playable, so he's going to be playing it, I'm sure. But, you know, for everybody else, Druid is definitely like not going to be something that you're going to want to play if you're like not sure about your space in the raid. Druid's like a great way to make sure that nobody wants to invite you. Warrior's looking pretty good. Warrior is kind of coming in as like a B+, A-. The loss of spell block is pretty bad in raids, but the rest of the defensive toolkit is great. It has great offensive value. It has great cooldowns. It has no group utility still. Like, what is group utility? I wrote that down in my notes. What is it? And that's kind of what you're dealing with as a warrior. Like, group utility, I don't even know what that is, but it's fine. Nice A-, B+. Like, very fun parser. Once you're like deep into farm, it's going to be pretty great, but for early prog, not the greatest option, I think. And then Monk is looking like a solid option in raid, like just solid middle of the pack, kind of mediocre damage. Maybe it'll wind up being good damage if they tune the tier set bonuses up accordingly, but probably not. The defenses are the same as you'd expect in raid. Stagger and Celestial Brew, the great combo for dealing with all of the boss burst damage, and that's pretty much all it's for. No other great group utility. Other Monk specs can do everything Brewmaster does, so it's not really anything special anymore, but it is capable of staying alive pretty well and providing that Monk debuff if you don't have anybody else who wants to do it, but usually you do. People really do like Mistweaver over the last couple of years, so Monk is looking like a solid middle of the pack, just a solid A rating. I would put it 4th place in the list of 6. I feel like that's pretty safe. So with that all being said, I think that in terms of like overall ratings, I think that Monk and Bear Druid are going to be your 2 weakest tanks. I think that Paladin and Demon Hunter just overall are going to be your 2 best tanks, with Warrior and DK kind of flip-flopping. DK like very good in raid and very bad in Mythic Plus. Well, very mediocre in Mythic Plus. And Warrior just like very solidly middle of the pack in everything. So with all of that being said, as it currently stands, my plan is to run Paladin and Demon Hunter for the coming season of Mythic Plus. Sunset and I usually play Paladin and Shaman together to just absolutely carry interrupts in every group we play in, and odds are pretty good that that's going to be our starting pair of characters for the coming season, although maybe one of us will mix it up and play something else, Demon Hunter or something, you know, we'll see. I think that Demon Hunter and Paladin are the two strongest tanks, especially when it comes to carrying groups of random players who, can't be counted on to interrupt reliably, which is just like every pug group ever, right? Paladin is a lot more consistent on that front than Demon Hunter, and my personal Paladin is full best of slot right now, so it's currently my number one, but I'm prepping my Demon Hunter, I'm getting it up there, and I would encourage you to do the same. Even if Blizzard doesn't add that secret third spec that people are sure is going to happen, it's still just very rewarding to play Demon Hunter. Both of us really can't recommend it highly enough. It's a really fun class, and it's going to remain an insanely strong tank in the coming season. And that's our ranking for tanks in the upcoming patch as the PTR currently stands. This next raid and Mythic Plus season are going to be a lot of fun. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and say hello to me and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more WoW content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.